Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and welcome back to another episode of our speculation series for the next Three Kingdoms title from Creative Assembly. So in our last episode, we shifted our discussion to characters, and for this episode, I want to focus on one particular aspect of character design, and that is traits. Currently, in Total War Three Kingdoms, every character starts with 3 traits, and has the opportunity to gain 5 more for a maximum of 8. Now, one of these 8 is reserved for an injury trait. So whenever your generals get knocked out in battle but survive due to resiliency, there is a chance for them to pick up an injury trait. This can be a beneficial trait, such as one-eyed or scarred, or a debilitating one, such as maimed or lame. As for the other 4 traits, the ways to gain them are a bit of a mystery. For modders, if you dig around the code, then you will spot some triggering conditions for certain traits, like most Total War games, but strangely enough, Three Kingdoms seems to be the most random and unreliable when it comes to actually acquiring these traits. Oftentimes, I would find that most of my generals would gain 0 new traits during the course of a 100+ turn campaign, and only administrators, assigned characters, and underage children seem to ever trigger the right conditions to gain traits. Not only does the rate of acquiring new traits seem random, the reason behind each new trait acquisition is also black boxed, as Three Kingdoms is one of the least transparent when it comes to why you have acquired a certain trait, which is really strange, as pretty much all other Total War games provide this information to you. Therefore, I hope CA can implement a better trait acquisition system in the new title. Explaining the triggering conditions of any new trait gain is the bare minimum. Ideally, my dream scenario is that groups of traits can be clustered together into events, where once a certain condition have been met, an event pops, which will give the player choices between 2, 3, or even 4 traits with different trade-offs. Now, before you go off to accuse me of stealing from Crusader Kings again, this is actually already in the game, as if you play Liu Bei's 182 start in Mandate of Heaven, your first 3 traits are actually acquired in this exact manner, where players are presented with stories from Liu Bei's childhood and are given the choices of 3 different traits for each of these events. And this can be done for all trait acquisitions alongside a simple notification that tells you the exact triggering conditions, and the game would improve vastly. It would not even matter if the writings on these events are generic or repetitive, as the players will gain infinitely more choices in terms of character building. For example, if winning a duel is a triggering condition for intimidating, strong, and formidable, then all you need to do is have a little story depicting a duel and offer 3 choices at the end, where one is how you threw the enemy general's head back at the enemy, which gives you intimidating. Then the second choice would be to bring the head back to your camp, which gives you the reputation of being strong. And finally, there can be one where you just simply leave the head and the body on the ground as a statement as you ride off to your next fight, which ends up giving you the reputation of formidable. And this is probably the biggest fix for trait that I can think of, as the traits themselves are fine, as there are over 100 traits in the game right now with a good mix of stat boosts. Of course, not all of these traits are balanced, but given that there's going to be other changes to the game mechanics, there's really no point to waste time to try to balance all of them before we even know what those mechanics will be. Overall, I think the role of traits in the game should be first to provide a bit of historical flavor on the character, especially with the 3 initial starting traits, which CA has done a pretty okay job for most of the important characters, but obviously with some of the lesser known generals, the traits seem to be given out at random with no regard to historical relevance. While understandable, this can be easily fixed in the future. As for the 5 traits that you can acquire during the course of gameplay, I think currently it just feels too much of a foreign and independent system that is completely outside of the player's control, and if CA can just provide a clear description for the triggering conditions and offer a small character building strategic aspect to new trait acquisition, the game will feel a lot deeper without actually adding a ton of complexity. Lastly, aside from this organic method of gaining traits, the current Faction Council proposal of replacing bad traits with good ones can be extended to little-used school building, where we mentioned before in this series that can attach assignments to certain buildings. Thus, by building a school, you can gain a new assignment to manually transform undesirable traits into new ones. And that's going to do it for this episode. Once again, if you want to share some additional input on the matter, feel free to comment below, and I'll see you all next time, as we'll discuss possible skill tree changes. So until then, bye!